Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. Welcome to this week's very special edition of Kibbitzing with Kagan, brief conversations with people I find fascinating. My guest today is Roz Jonas. I have known Roz through politics for forever, and she has been an outspoken leader, advocate, and activist on women's abortion rights. And Roz, first, let me just thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
Happy to be here.
So let's start with your journey. And I want to thank you for your forthrightness here. And you've been telling your story for many decades. Why don't you share what happened to you when you were 19 or 20?
I was 19. My first boyfriend, as we like to say, knocked me up. It took me a while to figure that out. I fortunately had a friend at Goucher College, which had a kind of conduit to a gynecologist in downtown Baltimore. I was able to get there. I had a conversation with the doctor who confirmed that I was pregnant. She said, "Can you tell your parents?" I said, "Absolutely not." She gave me a little folded slip of paper with a phone number on it and told me to make that call. I went to a payphone. I called that number. I made an appointment to be picked up in downtown Baltimore in front of a movie theater on Utah Street. I was 20 years old, standing there by myself. I was picked up by a man. I mean, I could have been a serial killer. I don't know who he was. A man, he had a dog in the back seat of the car. I thought, okay, he's probably okay. And I was told to bring $600 in cash. And this was 1966. $600 in cash was a lot of money. And I had to borrow little bits of it from lots of different people. I was driven to a farmhouse in Baltimore County. I had no idea where I was. The man dropped me off there. There was a couple there. They told me to make myself comfortable. They put me on a bed with stirrups. A doctor came out, I'm guessing he was a doctor. He was a man in surgical attire with a mask. He performed a D&C without anesthesia.
Dilation and curettage. That's an abortion for early weeks.
Exactly. Without any anesthesia. I was shaking in the stirrups. It was over fairly quickly. They packed me up with some pads, and the man who drove me back to the movie theater in downtown Baltimore, where my then boyfriend picked me up and brought me to a friend's house for the night. And that is how I got started on this. This was 7 years before Roe became law of the land.
Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court decision that legalized abortion rights.
Yeah. And it was, it meant that by the time I got married, and my husband and I wanted to have children, and it was a difficult fertility struggle because I went to a doctor who said, "Oh, well, you've had an abortion." And he wrote infertility across the paperwork with the most cursory examination. And that sent me on a path of a lot of unnecessary medical treatment. I had another D&C. I had something called the hysterosalpingogram. I had something else. Fertility doctor I saw said, "Well, you can have tubal surgery now." I said, "Oh, I don't think so." My husband was very upset about it. He went to see a doctor. I loved telling this story. I'm not sure he loved it, but the doctor said boxer shorts and no jacuzzis. Bingo.
Boom. And you had two daughters.
I had two daughters.
You and Gary.
Yes. And I wanted them to know, as soon as they were able to know, how important this was to me. Although I must say, my older daughter, who was perhaps 12, when she came in my office one day and said, I know about the abortion. And I said, how do you know about that? And she said, you had one?
So I read the article in Cosmopolitan magazine when you and your daughter told the story, and how it is part of the family lore,
It
and
is.
how important it is to talk to our mothers or our daughters about
Exactly.
abortion history.
Yep.
How has that guided your daughters?
Well, I took them to, I was for a time an officer at NARAL Pro-Choice America.
So I worked at National NARAL, and it's no longer called that, but
You know,
NARAL used to be the National Abortion Rights Action League.
that's
It
how it
was
started.
the preeminent pro-choice
Yeah.
advocacy organization with chapters around the country. And
Yes, it was. And there was a lunch every year or a dinner. And I started inviting my kids and all the other 8th and 9th and 10th graders and their mothers. And so it was definitely a part of their understanding about what was the right thing to do.
yes. So you didn't just go to the lunches or dinners at NARAL. You served on
No,
the board and then became board chair
I
and
was,
emceed the dinners, the annual
yeah.
events and all that. So why? Was it healing for you? Was it traumatic? Like, describe how that was for you.
No, it wasn't it was neither traumatic nor healing. It was just matter of fact. And, when I first started telling my story, I had people say, oh, you used the A word.
Mm.
Well, I did use the A word. I
Mhm.
mean, because what I had was an abortion.
Mhm.
And at one point, I asked everyone in the audience, 1,000 people, to either stand up if they had had an abortion or if they knew someone who had had an abortion.
Oh,
And virtually the entire room stood up.
sure. Wow.
And, I found that the more I told my story, the more people would say, oh, I had one.
Yes.
I had one too. And I think for them, it was liberating to open up about it when they hadn't. And I have been nothing if not upfront about it.
When I worked at NARAL in the mid 80s, one of the things that we did, I think it was 1985, was about telling stories and about our daughters, our mothers, our sisters, our wives, and sharing stories. And we had different stages in downtown DC with reading people's stories, and we got letters before the internet. We got snail mail letters, and we read them aloud.
Yep.
Roz, talk about the A word that you just mentioned, abortion. So it used to be that we all just said, I'm pro-choice and I vote. And it was talking about choice. But in recent years, there has been a movement to say the A word, to talk about abortion. I'm pro-abortion. I favor abortion rights. What do you think of that? And what's the wisdom of that, in your opinion?
I don't think we can tiptoe around something that is a matter of fact procedure. I mean, for a long time, it was the most commonly performed surgical procedure in the United States. There was no sense calling it something else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it certainly is a choice, but it is an abortion. And I understand that it's not everyone's choice. And I also know that it is a situational choice, that people who believe, oh, I'm opposed to abortion, except that this just happened to me.
Right.
And now I've changed my mind about that. I think that's, again, the more you talk about it, the more accepted it is.
Yes. Same with death with dignity, which I also see as similar to pro-choice and our bodies. Don't tell me government shouldn't tell me what to do with my body. Death with dignity or end of life options. Sometimes they say you're one hard death away from being totally supportive of that. And in the same way, one unintended pregnancy, one situation of rape or incest or fetal deformity or threats to the life of the mother
Yep.
away from being really strongly pro-choice or favoring abortion rights.
Yeah, and I am colossally offended by those people who believe that abortion can be performed after the 9th month of pregnancy.
Oh my God.
I mean, it takes my breath away to think that anyone would believe that. And yet,
Donald Trump said that in the debate.
Yeah,
and
believe, or now today he doesn't believe it. Last week he did believe it.
But it would be murder after, all of that. I don't even want to dignify that. So at one of the events, Roz, that I saw on C-SPAN, you described yourself as a wife, a mother, an aunt, a godmother, a taxpayer, a voter, an election day worker, a PTA president, a soccer mom, a person of faith. Does that help humanize and connect with people who might want to just put you in a box?
That was my plan when I said that. Yes. I'm just a regular old person living in Bethesda, wanting everybody to know my story, that I'm just like you in this regard or that regard, maybe not in the abortion regard, but
Sure.
You need to respect my decision.
Absolutely. What sort of negative interactions have you had? What's the worst thing that someone who
people used to take bumper stickers off my car?
Okay.
There was a stage where I always had bumper stickers on my car, but now I don't have those on my car. But I used to have a lot of pro-abortion bumper stickers. And I would occasionally find under my windshield something like a pair of bloody footprints, or
oh God, I love that.
And when I became the chair of NARAL's board, I had a friend who said to me, "Don't you think you should have police protection?" I said, "No. I mean, no." But so, some people were fearful about it, and that was then. The climate now is very different.
Yes.
But that doesn't stop me from speaking out.
My favorite bumper sticker a friend of mine had on her car that was "against abortion?" ?
Don't have one.
Don't have one.
That's right.
I kind of think that says it.
I have all of those buttons, and I am wearing, I might note,
yes,
a necklace that is a coat hanger.
Coat hanger.
Can you see that?
I can't. Your hand is covering.
I have had people ask me if I am a dry cleaner.
I love that. I love that.
So then I have it tattooed on my wrist also.
There you go. Well, I'm wearing my button.
I see that.
Bands off our bodies.
Yes, that was a Jewish community thing, I think, right?
In Barbie pink.
Yep.
So talk about the times when we worried about the patchwork quilt, and I know we'll get back to that again, but when it was state by state restrictions at the local level, but Roe versus Wade was still the prevailing law of the land. Tell me what you were thinking at that time, and then we'll get to the Supreme Court.
I felt nothing but relief from 1973 until Roe v. Wade was overturned. I thought, okay, my kids and my children now are 41 and 40. They didn't have to think about this. Yes. They took for granted that this was a right available to them. I took for granted that it wouldn't be overturned. And all of the Supreme Court justices in their hearings said it was precedented, it was settled law.
Right.
I believed them.
Right. I think people used to think we were Chicken Little, the sky is falling. Oh my gosh, in the Supreme Court, and we've got to elect a pro-choice Congress or a majority in Okay. Yeah. So there was the Webster decision. There were all these like incursions and chipping away at women's rights. And then the Dobbs decision came down. Where were you when you heard the news?
I wept. That's where I was. I wept. I actually was interviewed by a German TV station who was here that day. And I spent a whole part of the interview crying. It just, wasn't something that I wanted. I have grandsons, not granddaughters, but other people do. And I don't want to see that my goddaughters, I wouldn't want to see anybody have to go through what I went through.
Yes.
I mean, really, I could have been picked up by a serial killer.
Yeah.
That's how, and I know that desperate women make desperate decisions,
Yes. Yes.
and they're going to do it again.
So I, on the day the Dobbs Supreme Court decision was handed down, I actually took the Metro down to the Supreme Court, and there were a whole bunch of us. I made a handmade sign for me and for a friend, and we just stood in front of the Supreme Court and along with
Yeah.
lots of others and chanted, and yeah, devastating. So update us since Dobbs. The climate has changed. And it has become not an issue in the closet, not one of the issues that candidates talk about, but it's really proven to be at the top or near the top of Democratic candidates' list of priorities. Talk about that.
I think people have been encouraged by voters in places like Kansas.
Kansas.
Yeah, where they have decided we're just not going to take this. It's like that terrible, whatever that movie was, Network. You know, I'm tired.
Mad
I'm
as
not
hell.
this
Mad
anymore.
as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Right. It's like that. You know, there are right now 10 states where it's on the ballot. And I think people are very much mobilized by it, and I find that very encouraging. And I cannot stand when people who are on the wrong side of this, for me, say, "Oh, we're going to just leave it to the states." Well, you know, the fact that we turned the other way when state legislatures were electing people whose values were clearly not mainstream values.
Yes.
And most of them men, which I find even more upsetting.
Yes.
And now it's on the ballot in 10 states, and including ours.
Yes. In Maryland, it's going to be on the ballot. Question one, and we are hoping to make sure that we can add it to the Constitution so that no matter who our governor is, no matter who controls the legislature, women will have reproductive choice.
Right.
So many other questions. Talk about the 6 week is the new number, 6 week, 7 week. It is so soon that a lot of women wouldn't even realize that they were pregnant.
Right. I had no idea. Right. So, you know, the other problem with that is that at one point at one of the NARAL dinners, I spoke alongside a young woman who had to terminate a very late term pregnancy that was a much wanted child.
Yes.
She wept through her entire speech. And, you know, it is something like 1% of all procedures is done late term.
Yes.
And those are all people who want to have that pregnancy.
Yes.
And it's heartbreaking for them.
I thought the Democratic National Convention did a brilliant job of talking about abortion. Not only did Vice President Harris and hopefully, the vice presidential nominee, Governor Tim Walz, talk about their passion for protecting women's health care options. But virtually all the candidates, members of Congress, senators, governors, everyone had talked about it. But they showcased women and couples and who told their stories. And all the stories were different and they were all moving.
I have always believed that storytelling was incredibly important here. And and the more you talk about it, as I said before, the more people warm to the subject and they want to tell their story also.
I'm not trying to take us off point again with but it occurs to me that when for so long gays and lesbians were in the closet, and as people came out and were comfortable in sharing with family and friends and colleagues at work, suddenly more and more people knew folks who were gay. They didn't know they knew gays and lesbians. And all of a sudden, oh, my nephew, my next door neighbor, my colleague, I adore, blah, blah, blah. And then they just didn't think it was that big a deal. And that's partially how marriage equality has just become accepted over the years.
It
So,
is, if I could just interrupt you, it is worth
please.
noting that marriage equality in Maryland passed with 52% of the vote. So people who say to me, oh, question one,
Mhm.
Maryland's a blue state, that's fine. No,
No.
it's not fine. And generally, I mean, I'm 78 years old. I'm a little tired of doing a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, the one thing that will take me to the streets, to the phones, to the letters, to whatever, is this issue. I
Yes,
said that I would raise money for Freedom in Reproduction Maryland, because that is how people in Maryland are going to know that it's on the ballot.
absolutely. Yeah, we got to remind people, you're not just going to vote for Kamala Harris, Tim Walz for president. You got to keep going. You got to do Angela Alsobrooks for U.S. Senate. You got to do April Delaney and Johnny Olszewski and Sarah Elfreth and the incumbents down, and then work your way down. Board of Education is really important. Do your homework and know who's running for Board of Ed, and then the ballot measures.
Yep.
Super, super vitally important. Let's talk about faith and abortion. You described yourself as a woman of faith. There are people, it used to be that, well, if you're from this religion, then you're opposed, and this religion, it's okay, or depending. What sort of conversations, or how do you see the development over the years about religion and abortion rights?
I think of myself as a nice Jewish girl. I believe that within the clergy and the Jewish community, there has been more and more discussion about this. And it is clearly, the life of the health of, and life of the mother is preeminent. And if it's not good for her, then it's not good, period.
Right.
I think that this last year, I guess on the anniversary of Roe being overturned, there was a Friday night Shabbat where there were speakers, representatives from not just the legislature, but from the National Council of Jewish Women and synagogues, all putting forward how important it was.
Yes. So the
So,
Jewish community has always been pretty progressive
yeah.
on this area, but there was a stereotype that all Catholics are opposed because the clergy. But that has,
But Catholics for Choice, when
right.
I was at NARAL, was a big organization.
Absolutely. And I
So,
think at the grassroots, I mean, Catholic women who choose to use birth control, or who choose to terminate a pregnancy. So, healthcare and abortion rights. I think it's been really interesting that it's not seen as just a sex thing. Abortion isn't just that it is all part of women's healthcare options, and part
abortion is healthcare.
of course it is, right. Um, we're going to start to wrap up here and go to the Fast Five. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to mention?
I think I've probably mentioned how unbelievably, incredibly important this is to me, and how important it is to me that question one passes.
Absolutely. And the other states. I mean, I love that it's on
Right.
the ballot in
Right.
Florida and Ohio, and like all these other places. What is your proudest feminist moment before we go to our Fast Five? When have you been like your most badass self?
Talking about this.
Okay, there you go. All right. So Roz Jonas, amazing abortion rights advocate and activist. Your Fast Five. Five quick questions to let people get to know a little more about you. Question number one: who has been your most important female role model or mentor?
Uh, I would have to say at the time I was at NARAL, it was Kate Michelman.
Nice. Kate Michelman, former executive director. When I was there, it was Nanette Falkenberg. Kate succeeded Nanette.
Yeah.
Question two: with your dear Gary, or solo, or with friends, what's your favorite vacation you've ever taken? Where was it?
I went to see Gary and I went to see the polar bears in Churchill, Canada. And though I had been to the Galapagos and I'd been to East Africa, there was something about seeing these incredibly enormous, fantastic looking creatures that was special. And we saw the Northern Lights when we got off the plane.
Nice.
So, yes.
Question 3. What is your secret favorite junk food?
I like Grotto Pizza in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and my grandsons love it, and I love it, and we go as often as we can in the summer.
What is your favorite topping? Topping or toppings? What do you put on it?
Double sweet peppers.
Okay. So as we get older, we learn a little bit to pick our battles. What is something that you just can't resist getting annoyed by and speaking out on, other than this?
Other than I can't stand typos.
Oh, I love that.
I'm pretty orderly. I straighten pictures in people's homes. I can't stand mistakes in anything. And my daughter, one of my kids told me the other day that somebody she knew was looking for a proofreader. I said, not a chance. No.
That's hilarious.
I confine myself to the newspaper, the printed word. But yes, I am a compulsive proofreader.
You and me both.
And I love a good pun.
Okay. Well, you know that
I know you do. I know you
do. Okay. Question 5, and the question I ask all of my guests. Roz Jonas, what is your hidden secret superpower? What is a skill or talent you have, something you're really good at that most folks can't do?
I don't know that I'm really good at it, but I have a part of a wrist full of tattoos that I would venture to say not very many 78-year-old women have. And when I went to Bethesda Tattoo to get one, they actually filmed me because they were so astonished that I didn't look like anyone else in there.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, that's a thing.
Is there one do you want to show us the hanger?
Sure.
Or anything else?
Sure. Can you see those?
Upside
Do it
down.
this way.
Tell us what they are.
There's one that says Carpe Diem.
Yes.
Because my late husband's favorite saying was take advantage of all the facilities, which I thought was too long to put on my wrist. Nani is here, which is what my grandsons call me.
Nice.
And they are Grayson, Graham, Casper, and Ben. Their initials are here. There's a coat hanger here with a line through it.
Yes.
And a Star of David.
Amazing. Amazing.
So.
Well, Roz, thank you. Thank you for your decades of leadership on such a fundamentally important human right. And your leadership, your fundraising, your donations, your outspokenness, your thoughtfulness has just been fundamental and so critically important. So thank you for all that you've done to make change and will continue to do in the months and years to come.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you soon. Stay well.
Yep. You too.
Thanks.